So, welcome to the Mind Culture podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Simon Meyer, the uprising superstar of Austrian choreography. Simon, what I know about Simon that he was in a metal band. Is it COP? Is the correct name?
Yes, so hello. Nice to be here with you.
And then he went to parts, and then he went to be an international famous choreographer with Airwaves and so on.
Yeah. Um First I've been in a heavy metal band at the same time. Which was called COP. So COP first was standing for Corner of Peace. No, first it was Corner of Pop. So we played a lot of pop music in the beginning. And then then we changed the name when we changed the cast of the band. Because the first cast of the band was my two brothers, me, and a female bass player and a female singer. And then the women left us for different reasons.
That's why the piece.
as it is for the as it happens a lot in bands, I guess, is that one falls in love with the other, and then when they separate, they step out of the band. And that's what also happened to us. And then we came to the name Corner of Peace. I don't know if it was for that reason, but no, actually it was, we basically changed our music style then also. We became really this heavy metal band playing Rage Against the Machine covers and Korn and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
But more and more than actually music that we made ourselves. So our own songs, and it was a very special period also in that time, because in a lot of the festivals we played, also like in festivals, for example, in the countryside, this Bierzelt fest or something like this, where normally you would hear this kind of Schlager and or cover band stuff. But in that period, people really accepted songs that were self-made, and those Bierzelt Feste were basically those tent festivals. They were like a lot of bands were booked that would play heavy metal.
Oh, wow.
And I really liked that period, basically. And for me, the like playing in the heavy metal band was a very nice opposition and compensation to the period in the opera ballet school, because those two happened in the same moment. So I was in the weekends, I would play in the heavy metal band and like scream my lungs out and be the bass player, the screaming the second voice screaming singer sometimes. And during the week I would be in the opera ballet school
Wow.
and also studying classical singing in the university and stuff. So, which of course my singing teacher didn't like so much, that I would come back after the weekend having not so much of a voice.
Okay, I'm starting to have a bit clearer picture about you. Can you can you tell me a little bit more, because I guess not everyone is familiar with like Austrian beer fest is. It's like Oktoberfest, but what's the particularity of it?
Yeah, it's basically like it's very similar to, or there is a lot of Oktoberfest that is a beer Zeltfest or a Zeltfest.
And it happens the whole year.
No, there are special periods, because in winter it's not so nice to sit in a tent like this. It's like a huge tent where you get a lot of beer and chicken and handle, yeah, exactly.
Schnitzel.
And sometimes there is also like a fun park that comes with it. So it's mostly it's in May, like Maidult or this Pfingsten, like around those days where the Holy Spirit was received by the, what's it called in English? The friends of Jesus.
The apostles, maybe?
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
And So you get to play the heavy metal.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
I
I
mean,
used to when I was a waiter, which I did during my studies in Linz. I used to work a lot on those places like in Wels and in Traun, and it's like basically it starts normal, but then they keep on drinking, keep on drinking, keep on drinking, keep on drinking until it gets really
yeah.
really crazy.
And I wouldn't even say they, because I was also like
Yeah, of
that.
course. I mean, I was serving, so
Yeah, but I remember times where I ended up in the end of a beer fest and not remembering the end of the beer fest.
so imagine like that so you said you've been going to ballet school. Like why ballet school? What
I mean,
put you there? Like what?
so I basically, before going to the ballet school, I basically grew up in the countryside in Austria, in Upper Austria, in a town called Andorf, and I started with folk dance and folk music. My father was teaching me the yodeling, and my mother um, was like the trainer and choreographer for the local youth group, where they did the Landjugend, where they each year they created another musical, or they learned another musical, like Cats and Phantom of the Opera and all that. And she would always take care of the directing and the choreography. So that was the first influences that I had, but I was mainly focused on music in the beginning, and learned violin and piano and flute and bass, and yeah, a few guitar and some instruments. So I was supposed to become a musician, but then I felt that I would like to be an actor, and then that was when I was like 8 or something, and then I fell in love with I kind of fell for a girl in my primary school, and she was in an amateur show dance group, and to spend more time with her, I asked my mom if I could be part of the show dance group, which then finally worked out. And then 2 years later, the teacher from that show dance group told me that there was this audition for the opera ballet school, and if I want to go there. And I was not really interested because I wanted to become an actor. And then she told me, well, you are, was it 11 years old, you cannot become an actor now. Like, look at Patrick Swayze. He also became first a ballet dancer and then an actor. So get some body awareness with ballet first. And I was a Patrick Swayze fan at that moment.
Oh,
The,
seriously?
Mambo of Dirty Dancing was one of the first dances that I learned. Yeah.
Wow, this is really something. Like this is really, and then like okay, then I imagine that you're like dancing at the opera.
Yeah.
At some point, like you are in the school, you're doing all this
Yeah.
ballet gigs, and then somehow you end up in parts.
Yeah. Um, so that dream of the actor never faded. So the first thing I wanted to do was, and I always wanted to combine making music, dancing, acting. So what I tried then was to find a school for musical. So I went to London and to other places to research on and to look for a school. But then finally they the director of the State Opera Ballet, Renato Zanella, at that moment asked me to be in the opera ballet, first as an aspirant, like as a, I don't know what's in
Intern,
English, like
sort
some
of.
kind of, yeah. Well, the lowest level of a ballet dancer, when you just start and you
Under
have
corps de ballet.
and you have to, no, it's in the corps de ballet, but you have to basically learn all the pieces. You have to learn all the roles. No, not all the roles, but you have to learn all the pieces, and you hardly ever get to be on stage. So you have a
Fantastic.
lot of work, but you have very little stage time.
Wow.
And that was then not so interesting to me anymore because I wanted to combine all these
Yeah, of
like
course.
acting, music, dancing, and especially choreography. And there was no chance for me in that moment to do that. And it was a very rigid system. It felt like doing an office job, but moving a bit more than that. and and I never wanted to do an office job in that way. That's being a lot like being bound to very strict systems or rules and static um, and then I worked a bit in the free scene in Austria here for Sebastian Brandl and Elio Gervasi and then very soon there was a workshop by David Zambrano where I asked him like after the workshop um, what school he could recommend, and well, he said parts would be one of them, but there was a big warning that came with it.
Like what?
Well,
It changes you?
he just said something. Well, yeah, you can do it for a year and then just get out of it, you know.
Uh-huh.
Because well, he was known also to take people out of parts and after the first year or second year, not to take them out, but to offer them a job after the first or second year because he saw that well, if they stay too long in that system, they could be too much formed in a way that maybe was not so ideal.
And did you do 1 or 2 years?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. So you are formed.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
But can you tell me, because this is very interesting for me. So I came to study to Linz. Like at the time I was looking for dance education. This is the whole reason why I'm in Austria. At the time I was looking for the education and I didn't know anything about like dance schools. I had a don't want to say the same, but similar path. I also started with ballet. So I did until I was 18. I did ballet like every day, but in the evening school. And then the ballet teacher told me, and I remember it like today, if you're not good enough to be in a ballet company, you can do contemporary dance. And I was thinking, I'm not good enough to be in ballet. So because I tried, I had this dream, but I never had like a proper education. It was not like Vienna Opera School. It was just like evening school with pushy teachers, whatever. But they didn't they lacked a little bit the technical things. So then I followed his advice and I searched for like how can I study dance? How can I make it this career? And I only found 2 schools because the only 2 schools had auditions in Poland, and one of them it was in Linz. So I started doing this, but then I'm always wondering like how would it be if I went somewhere else? And I'm wondering what is your perspective, because for example parts and the field of contemporary choreography, it seems to me like whoever finished parts, or let's say there is a big group of people who finish parts who are very present in the international scene, and I'm wondering like what does parts do that it works, and I wonder what your perspective is as compared to other schools. I don't know if you know any other schools, but I'm wondering like what is the formula in parts.
I mean, now that I'm teaching, that I've been teaching a lot also in the last years in the university in Frankfurt, the HFMDK, and also in the MOOC here in Vienna, in the dance department, and other places, I do get to see other schools and systems as well. And I think it's great that there is a big variety. It's great that everyone tries to establish a system that supports students, or well, not all of them are how should I say? Like, of course, the school that I came from, the opera ballet school, I would not support a system like this for sure. As it was at that time. I mean, we also saw the scandals that came out of that time. with students being misused or treated very, very badly and very bad pedagogics. A lot has changed in that way. And I really admire schools like the MOOC, for example, where they have been on a similar track as the opera ballet school at the time, and they managed to get um, out of that track so well and developed into a very human and welcoming structure. I think thanks to Niki Selimov, I guess, also and other people supporting that. And for parts, what I really appreciated was the combination of subjects that we had, the variety on subjects, so that there was a strong theory base that you had after that school. There was philosophy, there was psychology, there was sociology, music theory. So there was a strong theoretical background you could get from this, and there was also a strong practical background you could establish throughout the years and parts. And also that the theory teachers, they were informed, so they it was university professors and teachers that had an admiration for dance, that were inside that subject, that they knew how to build the link between the practical, or most of them at least knew how to build the link between the practical aspects that we had in school and the theoretical aspects. So you had, like, if you didn't fall asleep in the theory classes, you had the chance to actually to interconnect that and to really integrate this information well. But yeah, there's surely also a lot of subjects and a lot to do, especially like arriving there in the first year was very, very overwhelming also in a way. And also in the other years, when then there was like I don't know, like final like exams to do, or there was deadlines that we had and all that, and things could get very overwhelming, and digesting all that information can be tricky. But it's really like being on an island for 4 years, and you just mainly do that, and that's your main circuit of like your community, your social surrounding, which only a few people manage to get out of there, like during the time at school, to get to know other people as well in Brussels. I was happy that I was very interested in like Argentinian tango, for example. So I got to know, besides parts, I got to know a lot of people from the tango community, and or other interests that I had, like with music and stuff, that I got some fresh wind, or every time going home again and meeting the folk dance group that I was with as a child already, and still training with them. So this was very important as well. But yeah,
it's really interesting because I always thought of parts as very connected in the way. I mean, I'm not here to talk about parts, but I just a little bit on this topic that the choreographers that they come to teach, they are also very active in the scene, aren't they?
Yeah, this is for sure the other aspect, or the other thing about parts, that it's just there's just a lot of very good teachers, I think, that come there, and teachers that, as you say, that are still active in the scene, and that it was not always my taste, or my like, even personally I didn't get along with some of them, but surely everyone had to give something very valuable and important in that way.
Cool. And so I imagine like you had this interest in choreography since always. I imagine, because you said already during ballet that you wanted to do choreography, so you were quite on the path since the
Yeah.
very beginning, right?
Now I would even say it's like always always having the interest in giving birth.
Aha.
So in just creating something and like now I even see it like that I mean being a human in a male body, let's say, is one thing that you will never leave is giving birth. And this is
So you
something
have to compensate for it.
this is like it sometimes seems to me it's like a compensation for not being able to give birth, so you at least give birth to a piece of art or whatever. And it
Never
seems
thought about it like this.
and sometimes it even seems like it comes a bit close to the struggle
You mean with the
that
pain?
that one
at
yeah,
the
with
end?
the pain that one would have
Carrying
when
it
giving
so
birth
long.
and carrying it, and then being before this premiere and just like being totally frustrated and full of pain because nothing works and it's just like a mess and sweating and screaming and I don't know what, but yeah, that can happen. And that's, I don't know why, but in this last 1 or 2 years, it reminded me again and again of the process of giving birth.
Okay. I feel that. I feel
Although I
that
have no
deeply.
idea about it.
Yeah.
Physically, I've
But
never
it's
felt
like
it,
an
and I
imagination
admire everyone that goes through this process. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Uh, yeah. Like so you.
But I had a similar story like you about this thing of I forgot what you said before, but something reminded me of
If you cannot be.
um, about the ballet school
Uh-huh.
that um, they always told me, you will never reach the upper grades because you cannot do the split.
Oh, you cannot do the split.
You know the like the split when you
Mhm.
when you really spread your legs very far
Oh,
apart.
no.
So I only could do it for one day, but then it was finished because I got injured. So first they told me you will never reach the upper grades because you cannot do the split. I reached the upper grades. Then I know in the beginning they were like you will never enter the ballet school because you cannot do the split. I entered the ballet school. Then they told me you can never reach the upper grades because you cannot do the split. I reached the upper grades. And then they were like, you will never be in the company because you cannot do the split. And then I was in the opera ballet. I still couldn't do the splits. And I can't do it until today. So it's really, this is the myth of the splits that is,
Yeah.
I think, still there in the dance world and in the ballet world.
Yeah, the split, the pointy finger, like the toes.
Yeah,
It's like I don't know, maybe for women it's more strict and it's more needed, but for the guys, I think like you can slack a little bit more on this if you have other skills. I imagine that you jump very high. Is it correct?
No, actually,
No.
actually, I was not really talented for ballet. Like even in the entrance exam, the director at that time, Michael Birkmeier, he told me, well, you don't really have a very talented body and physicality for ballet, but you're really good in school. Because he saw my
Oh God.
Zeugnis, my grades of like gymnasium of the secondary school. And I was late already with entering the ballet school. I entered it with 13, which is very late.
So late, yeah.
But yeah, at that time he wanted to kind of repair the reputation of ballet dancers, which was at the time
To be more inclusive.
No, it was that ballet dancers are stupid because they don't go to school and they're not very intelligent. They just have to move their bodies well and be beautiful. And he wanted to repair that reputation, and that's why he took me, I guess, because I was good in school and I went to school. So he was concerned about that, but
Cool.
finally, the side effect was that I learned some ballet.
Yeah, but it's useful. I really like to hear stories about like failed ballet. I think this is really great. Like if you're I don't know, because ballet is such a clear structure and such like a perfect world where like you're
Mm.
not supposed to fail. Like you're just supposed to go all the way up, and like if you fail, like you failed in life. But actually, I know so many people that just didn't, they found something completely different, like through contrast. And I see that what you're doing is yeah, it's like the exact opposite of being in a strict balletic barriers, like strict prison of form in a way. So
Mm.
like what drives you to, because I have the feeling that you reach for some kind of, in your performances, as I understand, as I perceive them, is like you reach for some kind of cathartic moment always. And like what drives you to like build, like, because I have the feeling that the dramaturgy always leads to certain kind of build up of energy, that it's just explosion at some point. And I'm wondering like what drives you to that. Is it like the metal kind of mentality, or what is it?
Mm. It's anger.
Okay.
Sometimes, like a lot of times, it is anger, and as a driving force, as a very positive, constructive force, actually. Um, it's mainly observing. It's mainly like training the observer in me, or in my mind, and that observer all of a sudden then realizing that there is a certain system, like detecting a system, if it's in my body, if it's in my mind, if it's outside a system, a political system, a social system, some habit, something like that, and then realizing that, and then there is sometimes like even when making a choreography, then or making a composition in music, that I always deal with this of, oh no, I'm again in another system. I just thought that I would be free from a system now, but I just maneuvered myself into the next system, and then there is like finding ways of dealing with that. So does that help me now? Does that not help me? Is it healing? Is it not healing? Um, and then at one point getting a bit blocked, and the anger then really helps to break that open again, and that leads to these cathartic moments also of like just letting the anger speak and letting the emotion dance and sing, um, and be shown until the moment comes where, well, let's say the heart is open again and the body is open again, and the flow comes back, and then there is always these moments of peace and love.
This is really, really interesting that you like specifically take this emotion to generate things. It's like a little bit like punk rock, I have the feeling.
I mean, I didn't know about it before that it was that emotion, and I also didn't want. I didn't accept it. There was a big aversion towards emotions in general, and anger especially, because I always thought, well, an angry person is a bad person. Cannot be different, because anger is like it carries the stamp of negativity. It carries the stamp of aversion, rejection. We don't want to be angry.
Mm-hmm.
But then the moment that I understood that it's really that it's something that brings me back to life, that it helps me to go through these seemingly like these walls that seem to not, where you cannot go through, where there is no door seemingly, but then all of a sudden the anger becomes this force. It's just like, no, 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 you can, you can.
Hmm.
um
It's really interesting because like I can relate to that, although I'm not doing it on this emotion. I'm trying to do, like, I always do it through the exhaustion. So I like to go to the limit of the like physical abilities, and I always like then I find something extra that is there, and it's like, oh, finally everything is open. And yes, maybe I get injured, and yes, maybe I can completely deplete myself out of energy. But like the feeling that is there, like if you didn't sleep for like, I don't know, 3 days or something like that,
Mm.
it's but it's is it maybe similar? Like maybe anger is easier.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try anger.
Well, the thing is that what you say is beautiful. Like exhaustion, I can totally relate to exhaustion. I also I feel very connected there. That exhaustion is something that I also work with a lot, because what it's doing in the end is um, so what cathartic performing or moments are doing is that at one point you get into the exhaustion,
Of course.
and something opens, something is liberated then inside. And also if the um, if if I take care of the connection with the audience at the same moment, then also in the audience something can release. And that's, I think, the beautiful thing, this interconnectedness and the interdependence that is there, and that is all of a sudden present in the room when the exhaustion happens, and when people are living with you, that there is no wall anymore, but there is one room, there is one space. Those are really the I would even say the sacred moments in performing. And what the moments of exhaustion are doing also, I find, is that they bring in these moments of flow and even trance that are very at least for me, very important phenomena that appear in a human body and mind.
And I'm wondering, because you said you've been training like the folk dancing, and like we were talking about the beard salto before, and I'm wondering, beard dance, I'm wondering if you can find like a link there to like reaching this other state and like reaching this. Is it something that is already embedded in the like the folk tradition, or is something? I'm wondering, because imagine like if you're so close to the nature in a way, and then you still engage in those, I don't know, public gathering that don't have like a clear purpose, then perhaps there is something generated there. I'm sure that there's something generated like if you go to a trance party, but that's maybe the urban style of the thing. I'm wondering if there is a rural style
I mean, yeah, now
aspect.
that my practice, like my artistic practice, and also my let's say self-experiencing and practice, and even spiritual practice becomes, I went a lot into the a method called cognitive trance. I realized that these moments of trance and flow have happened already quite early, as you say, in the folk dance. So on one hand, also by being drunk and going into other states, or if it's alcohol, or if it's another substance or medicine or whatever, there's many ways of helping that state. I like now the wording of the states of being moved. That's also what I'm working on since a while. So if it's trance, or if it's like certain states of flow that you reach through meditation or through tantric practice or whatever. So these states of being moved, now that I integrated some of them more, I found out that very early with folk dance they were there already, or with going to these tent parties, tent fests, and especially because folk dance contains movement and sound that can bring you into these states, like turning, whirling. You have like the whirling and the spinning you have in nearly every folk dance. the circular motions you have in nearly every folk dance, the stamping on the ground, which is like it's a very basic movement to also ground yourself, to simply get aware of your feet, because when you stamp on them, sometimes it hurts. So pain creates awareness and creates a focus on the moment. With when pain is there, there is no other way than being in the moment. If it's big enough.
Wow.
So it's a very good.
It's
It's
like
a
this.
very good tool to actually a very good tool for meditation. To
Give yourself pain.
not necessarily to give yourself, but this is also the reason, I guess, why people really like the cycle of pain and pleasure, pain and pleasure, pain and pleasure, because there's always the pain that brings them back into
It's like
the moment.
shortcut into being in the moment.
Shortcut of mindfulness meditation. To just so yeah, in the end, so this is also involved in folk dance, because if you look at the Schuhplattler, this formerly more male version of the folk dance, let's say, which is luckily not anymore the case, because there's also women doing the Schuhplattler now. But that can give you a lot of pain, because you just have to hit your upper legs and your thighs very loud, that you prove you're a man, and all that bullshit, I would say. But it's in that way also can be also seen as a meditation practice, or it goes into catharsis, it goes into an exhaustion also, and it raises your blood pressure. So there's all these experiences you can find in folk dance that and folk music that are very, you could even scientifically prove it, I guess, that a lot of them are healing and transcendental. But that was always the interest for me, to find out what is the link between tribal dance, between folk dance, between even like dance therapy. So that's the question that I'm asking now also with the new production. What would be a universal folk dance?
I see. Yeah, I also experienced some, like, my shortcut to mindfulness meditation, because I also don't like to spend too much time on it. In a way, I like the fast way, and just to be there in the moment. Like, I do handstands, and like, I don't know, there's something when you're like, handstand is like an instant meditation, like when you're like upside down, and like for me, my whole head gets red of all the blood, and like few moments, and then you're really there. Like, you have to be in the moment, because otherwise you fall. I find this always really, really great. Yeah, actually, yeah, it's really interesting that it does exist in rural areas, the being in the moment, actually, because this is what we are lacking. Like, now we live in the city, and I'm wondering if people in the city, I mean, unless they do go to trance parties, maybe trance is something else than being in the moment. I'm actually wondering if these aren't two different things. But still, like, if you're in a trance party, like, you're probably there. Maybe your mind is somewhere else, but you are there.
I mean, I would make a difference now between, for example, a trance practice like cognitive trance, what I'm practicing, and a trance party. Although there is now experiments that we would do with these two practices, but it depends. Like, it depends what is happening in that trance party, and what the music is made for, and the drugs or the medicine that are around. But yeah, in that way, there might be some kind of like mind or body trance experiences or flow experiences that happen in a party like this, but there is also a lot of experiences that are not at all trance, or not have nothing to do with being in the moment.
But I'm just wondering, like,
like
in rural areas, like, in urban areas, like, there's hardly any practice that can bring you towards this state? And I'm just wondering, like, because what is your take on this? Because I imagine like majority of people live in urban areas, so
So with the two performances that I made, Sumbang Sitting and Sons of Sisi, I did a lot of research on urban culture, on rural areas, on like countryside and city, comparing, because that was such a big topic of like city people are doing this, countryside
yeah.
people are doing that, and then and in the end what I found out is that there's not much of a difference. Like you have so much yeah, I couldn't really see where the separation was there in the end, because if it's about, if we your question now, if it's about practices on trance, well, sometimes in cities you have a lot of workshops or courses that you can visit on these specific topics, and at the same time in the countryside you might have those communities that are practicing folk dance, which give you access to states of trance, or you have yeah, it's also I don't know, like there's there's really this.
You don't agree with this separation?
I don't agree with this separation, really. Yeah.
Cool.
No.
Yeah,
and at the same, like even like with folk dance, you have a lot of folk dance communities also here in the city in Vienna. You know, like there's at the same time you have a lot of areas in the countryside where they don't do any folk dance anymore, and there's no traditional clothes, nothing. So in that way,
I think I'm romanticizing a little bit there.
It's a very romantic and beautiful image, and it's of course it helps also it's just another system of navigating through reality, or through the reality that is here, to say this is black and this is white, this is countryside and this is city. Sometimes that helps, and other times it's just not helpful at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, you're an expert, so that's why we have this conversation.
Well, I'm just
cool. Okay, then finally, my final question, because I think we're running out of time, your time. My final question would be, because you are organizing a festival, you have been organizing for a long time a festival in countryside of dance and music, and I'm wondering, like, how do people in countryside react to what you're proposing, and is it something that is close to them? Is it something that is far away? How do you communicate with them? And is there a barrier, or how can we break this barrier?
The festival that I organized together with my brothers in an association there, and other artists in the countryside. So it was on the farm of my parents. It was called Spiel, which means play or game. And for me, what was really nourishing was exactly what you're talking about, this confrontation with the audience there, with a very uninformed audience, or not everybody again. You know, there were a lot of people that would go to Linz, for example, to watch performances, or also to Vienna sometimes, but still a majority had not much to do with contemporary dance or experimental music and fields like that. And that confrontation was very beautiful to really discuss then with one of the carpenters, for example, what he can take home from a dance piece.
What can he take home from a dance piece?
Well, because he told me, like, you know, like, if I make a table, then I know that the wood comes from there and there. I build it. I know that this family will sit on it, take it home, and will sit on it and have their lunch and their dinners for several years. And so this is a direct connection of like production, and you can see it and touch it. So, but what am I doing with you jumping around in front of me on stage? So what can I do with that? No?
So,
And these kind of questions, they were very supportive also later on for me as a choreographer, and in how I can relate to an audience, how on what levels I can talk and communicate with my body, with my voice, with the music, the dance, speech, drawing. Like there is so many possibilities you have, but the answer to me seems that it's really a question on material and immaterial, on visible and invisible. So what is immaterial value, and is that something that somebody can appreciate or cannot appreciate?
And do you think that in a countryside it's a lot about material value, or how is it?
I wouldn't say in the countryside, because again, like in the city, I met the same questions.
Absolutely.
You know, but definitely, what is there is if you say, what do you like about the flower? What do you like about that rose? And then one person would say, I like how it looks. And the other person would say, I like the smell. So you have already two very different experiences. You have like one is maybe more oriented on like the visual side of it, and so it's beautiful, like it looks red, whatever with and then there is the sensory experience. So this is already goes already, at least what I think is, it goes already one level deeper, that one knows even what a rose smells like, because you take your time to go there and to smell it, and not just to look at it for a bit and then to go away again. And this is a bit similar with the immaterial value. I mean, already if you can say a rose is beautiful, there is an immaterial value that you take with you. The material value would be that it costed me so and so much, so I bought it for that money that I earned there, and then I could give it to someone else for a present. And well, after a while, a rose dies, of course. But going out of a dance performance and say that, and remembering that the feeling inside was that there was some emotions coming, that there was some feeling inside coming up, that there was some chain of thoughts and memories that it created, that and being like that, the mind and the body is that connected, that you can get out of this dance performance and have a memory or carry something inside that lives on, but inside, not graspable. That is, I think, the process. That is, I think, the process of what it means to really get into appreciation of the immaterial.
So you think that that's where the conversation should be, basically. So how do you communicate
I think this
value of dance?
I think this is at least for me where one focus should be on that conversation, because this is not just a conversation about the value of dance. This is also this also concentrates on the value of me as a human being, of a human experience, in a way. Because what we see a lot is the disconnection, is the separatedness inside us, to be torn between mostly two sides. Sometimes it's like mostly it's like the mind and the body, or not, like having an aversion towards emotions. But there's always something that is not completely round there, and that's the same trajectory, actually. That's like a lot of stuff that is going on, I think, politically or in society, or really comes from that separatedness, from from not being with the interdependence, not being with the connection in yourself, like finding the home in yourself, and then through that finding the home in and with the other one, and with the collective, and with the unknown. I think these are the trajectories that one has to go in a way.
I like this. This is very philosophical, but I think
Yeah.
the choreography is somehow has some affinity with philosophy in a way.
Totally.
Once you actually, this is maybe for everyone, like actually philosophy is widely accepted field, and choreography is such a foreign field. But if you think like this, if I talk with you, it is obvious to me that this kind of thinking is very common to both of these subjects.
Yeah. And it doesn't, the important thing I think is that it does not stay with the philosophy, but that is like embodied philosophy. So that we, it's the same thing again, like there is black and white, and there is theory and practice, and there is hell and heaven, and so and all of them are actually the same system. Also, when we say we are not part of the system, well, we are always part of the system. There's no way to get out of the
course,
system.
Of course. I mean, we are humans. We
Yeah.
have to be in the system. Like, cannot survive alone.
And I think this is also what we can bring back as choreographers or dancers, or I wouldn't even want to use these kind of terms, because I don't identify myself as purely a choreographer. It's just more being busy with a lot of stuff of artistic experience, whatever. But to, I think what we can take responsibility for is to really get back into the physical experience as well, because there has been like decades now of a lot of brain activity, a lot of overthinking, a lot of compulsive thinking also, and losing a bit what it means to feel, losing what it means to really get connected with emotions.
I'm losing the feeling as well. Like, I'm losing this, and I'm even in the same field as you, so I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. This was Simon Meyer from Austria. It's my biggest pleasure to have you as a guest, and
thanks a lot for the invitation. It's been a pleasure.
All right, so yeah, that's it then.